Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into MB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight, a leading attorney mocking the serious tone placed on the Louis Bacon-Peter Nygard controversy. This as a member of Parliament calls the debacle embarrassing. The Speaker of the House laments the dishonorable conduct of some MPs, and as always, we count down the top quotes and news this week. I'm Paige McCartney. We've got those stories and more straight ahead on MB12 Weekend. Welcome once again to MB12. Members of Parliament have been preoccupied for more than a week with allegations of corruption and an alleged murder-for-hire plot involving two billionaire Lifer Key residents and the politicians allied with them. In fact, much of last week's mid-year budget debate in the House of Assembly involved a back and forth among MPs about which political party took the most money from Louis Bacon and Peter Nygard. While noted attorney and Queen's Counsel Wayne Munroe is calling the back and forth laughable, questioning the opposition's motive for releasing the affidavit, which claims Nygard hired criminals to murder Louis Bacon and his Save the Bays affiliates. He's also questioning the legal grounds for filing that affidavit in a civil court rather than a criminal court.
Well, I don't know this concept of it. I don't know what his sub judice say. All right, I don't know what is their cause of action. If their cause of action is to seek an injunction against murder, that makes no sense. I don't know known to law, but whenever you see someone bringing something like that to the press, it's usually because they are trying to litigate in the court of public opinion as opposed to the court of law, and so you approach it with suspicion. From what I can gather, they drop one big chunk of document, assume nobody's going to read it, and then people start going off and giving their comments, something vehement people like to do, talk without possession of the facts.
Munroe said, quite frankly, the issue should have never made it to the floor of the House of Assembly, and having brought it, the opposition should have been prepared for the governing majority to defend itself.
Jerome Fitzgerald, the Minister of Education. I'm driving my son's car, which only has 50 and 40, so I'm forced to listen to this. I heard him saying, when Dr. Rollins was making his contribution, that if you attack, if someone's integrity, they're bound to respond. So I think it was wrong of the leader of the opposition to bring it into the House. That was either something that he was deliberately doing because he was a part of the whole process of trying to litigate this in the court of public opinion, or else he was negligent and just was used as a pawn. Either one is dangerous, but I think the response to it was the one. I think the Minister of National Security, who would have to speak to what the police is doing, responded, and then everyone has gotten back to what it should all be about.
At the end of the day, Munroe points out that this is just a personal fight between two very wealthy men that the Bahamian government and public have been dragged into. He said at least some, albeit a small number, of Bahamians are benefiting.
It's basically, as he says, two rich people fighting, and they use all kind of means. In fact, I'm happy for, who is it, Bobo and Yogi, whoever the fellas is, they got some money from them. I'm happy for KB if he got some money from them. We just sad that they ain't give more of us some money. If he have 1.75 billion, spread the joy. I'm quite sure many more Bahamians would have wanted to participate in what Jerome called it, the Bahamian hustle.
Well, Bar Association President Ellsworth Johnson also weighed in on the scandal. While he refrained from commenting on the matter directly because it's before the courts, Johnson said this is the perfect time to discuss reforming campaign finance laws.
Having regard to the bar's role for legal reform and to assist with legal reform, perhaps this is a good opportunity for someone to table some legislation on campaign financing. I know that the UN group that came to the Bahamas prior to the last general election spoke to it, and both sides comment. The Honorable, well, we have had Bahamians who travel to other countries, and they've considered it, and so it's a golden opportunity for campaign legislation, campaign finance legislation.
Well, Free National Movement Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs Hubert Chapman says he could only imagine what the international community must think of the Bahamas following the recent allegations on the part of the Bahamas government stemming from the release of those Nygard videos.
I don't think it's the best thing for the Bahamas right now. I think right now, if this to go international, and it has gone international, the question is how are we being viewed in the international scene? All right, now you hear some other things about Save the Bay that's floating around. I don't know what to say at this particular time. I haven't heard the tapes. I heard there are tapes out there, but personally I haven't heard the tapes. So to say, I think right now, it's not good for the Bahamas in the press.
The videos are loaded with explicit language, but in what appears to be a secret recording in a vehicle, Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard could be seen and heard having conversations with two men purporting to be hitmen. The names of the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister were called in the recordings. The story has got international headlines, with the Canadian press quickly picking it up. The matter is currently under investigation, and Nygard has denied any wrongdoing, saying he's innocent. But regardless of the outcome, Chapman said he's concerned about how this all looks internationally, saying he doesn't want it to go back to decades ago when some international agencies considered the Bahamas to be a nation full of corruption and up for sale.
Well, I don't want to go back to the 80s. I definitely don't want to go back to there, because I think we have come a long way since the 80s. But, when you take a step back and think about what's going on and alleged corruption and the things that were filed in the Supreme Court, now this thing is before the courts right now, so I prefer not to comment on that. I understand it's a 410-page document that is before the courts. I haven't had a chance to see that. It's now a public document.
Well, House Speaker Dr. Kendall Major said he's often left disappointed and disgusted by members of Parliament because of their behavior in the halls of Parliament. The shouting, finger pointing, and blatant disrespect, he said, is not something he expects from people sitting in the Honourable House of Assembly, and said it's not a good example for others to follow. He spoke with Kyle Joaquin and explained the only way he thinks this can be fixed.
Just how honorable are the halls of Parliament? Just about every week, parliamentarians gather to discuss and debate certain topics, but as of recent, things have gotten quite heated. So we spoke with the Speaker of the House of Assembly on that.
There are often shouting matches.
Like my of Webb. If you listen to me, if you listen to me now, listen now, then this member for Bimini, and then it's member for Bimini. You have a
Finger pointing, and most recently, apparent threats.
I knew I need to lose a little screw, but I want to meet him at the right place.
Thank you.
Join me.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Join me whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
With your little slack hand.
But just how far are members of Parliament allowed to go when debating in the House of Assembly? House Speaker Dr. Kendall Major said many times he's disappointed in the actions of MPs during debate.
Yeah, it is disappointing. No question about it. I'm often disappointed at individual members from time to time when they overreact or say things that are regrettable.
There are often times when one member may be on their feet making a contribution to the debate. Meanwhile, side conversations are ongoing among other MPs, sometimes causing a disturbance. And on countless occasions, the House Speaker finds himself trying to calm heated MPs.
Members, audit. Okay, members. A member for Fort Charlotte. Members know the rules and they know they ought not respond. But what happens is passions get a bit frayed, and people take advantage of certain situations, and it becomes oftentimes unprofessional and rude. And so it becomes very disconcerting for me as the chair to have met a situation and a kind of culture where members often retort, often in unkind and unparliamentary ways.
So just how do you fix something like this that's been broken for so long? Major said it must start with the leader of each side.
It's fixed by the culture, leadership. The culture on both sides have to accept the fact that what we're here to achieve, both have to agree with it, because the rules are made by the members. And I think if there's an agreement from both sides of the aisle, then it becomes a better managed, and we can hold members to account.
But he said MPs must remember what they are elected to do, and that they should be an example.
We try to deal with it as best we can, remembering that my role is not necessarily to be a principle, but at the same time, I am a member of Parliament, and the public have elected these members to be their representative. So we are all in this together, and I try to do my very best to kind of manage it while certainly managing the quorum and also them holding their own dignity.
Reporting for NB12 Weekend, I'm Kyle Joaquin.